Good morning. Let's talk about some news. First off, we have the EU Special Envoy Emanuela Del Rey. I've not come across this woman before, and hopefully I never will again. There's not enough medicine, food, electricity is missing even more than before, she noted. So what they're noting here is that Niger, which has been supplying the EU with massive amounts of the stuff that it needs to sustain things like electricity, it doesn't have itself. And this is totally cool with these people. Of course, what they fail to realise is that if you take something away that people haven't had to begin with, they're not going to care. Mr. Assad has said to Sputnik Africa that there is really no point at the moment in speaking to Mr. Erdogan, because Mr. Erdogan has made it clear that what he wants is to legitimise Turkish occupation of northern Syria, and that's not something he's interested in discussing. Which, I mean, I think is pretty reasonable, to be honest. I imagine he's seen that Mr. Erdogan is not a man of his word, to say the least, and realises now that it's not going to impact on his relationship with Mr. Putin if he doesn't meet with Mr. Erdogan. So I'll always back Assad, especially when it comes to occupation of someone of his country. I'll always back Assad. Last night, the French armed forces reportedly attacked the National Guard of Niger, violated the airspace of Niger, and I have been told from a couple of sources that they also released some terrorists from prison. Let's see what happens today. South Africa have released the 23 countries that have formally submitted applications to join BRICS. I'm not going to read them all out, but you can pause there, read them for yourself. That's pretty conclusive. Nigeria's presidency responds to criticism of possible intervention in Niger. President Tinubu has deemed it necessary to state unequivocally that the mandate and ultimatum issued by ECOWAS is that of ECOWAS's position. I would be concerned if I was this guy, because he is not speaking for his people. I know that the Senate have put him right on military intervention, but still, I think he's playing to the wrong crowd. 3 obstacles holding back Africa's economic development. This was an interesting piece done by an economist, a Cameroonian economist, which I recommend looking up. You can get Sputnik Africa on Telegram. It's really, really interesting. I am really, really, really pleased to see that economists like this are getting a bit of a platform, that they're being able to discuss what it is that Africa needs to do, because fundamentally that's what needs to happen right now, and we should all be aware of that. BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization may merge into one entity. I mean, this makes sense if you look at the list of countries that have applied to join. There wouldn't really be the need for both. South Africa has said that BRICS stands strongly against sanctions. I think this is the first comment from BRICS that I've seen possibly regarding Niger. We don't respect sanctions. They have no grounding, no validity, and no leader basis. This is an argument against the petrodollar. Ukrainian militants, though I possibly give them a different name here, have made an attempt to attack a spent nuclear fuel storage facility at Zaporozhye nuclear power plant with a drone, Russian security forces told Sputnik. Okay, so just, going for a lower level nuclear disaster. Cheers, guys. So glad we're funding you. This is excellent. This is a graphic that shows which countries are preparing to go to war for Niger on behalf of Africa. And as you can see, you've got these countries at the bottom here that are for intervention. Interestingly, the countries that have ports on that bottom side. But as we know, Senegal and and Nigeria have both got massive amounts of civil unrest, because they really, really are not up for going to war with Niger. And it says that Algeria is neutral here, but I think I've heard otherwise. Anyway, I thought that was quite a good graphic, and I think we need to be aware that that's the situation at the moment in Africa. Almost 80% of Nigerians support military takeover leaders, poll says. So again, the one guy with the cool hats might be saying stuff in Nigeria, but actually the people are saying something very, very different, and very loudly and very succinctly, I have to say. So I think Nigeria might be next in line for a coup. Niger crisis sparks fear in France. Niger was rocked by a military takeover last month, with the new authorities freezing uranium and precious metal exports. France, which depends on the African nation for nearly a fifth of the uranium powering its nuclear power plants, has expressed its support for a possible military intervention by a regional political bloc known as the ECOWAS. A group of French lawmakers has sent an open letter to President Emmanuel Macron demanding a review of France-Africa's policy and warning that the Niger crisis shows that Paris is being squeezed out of Africa by other powers, including Russia, China, and the States. Now, yes, but if they're not going to take what happened in Mali as some sort of warning and change their policy, I feel like this is like shutting the door after the horse has bolted. I mean, that ship has sailed, and France really needs to accept that now. Moving over to this heartbreaking picture of Imran Khan, who I have so much respect for, who has been locked up, and he's really unhappy that he's in jail, because he's basically now part of a banana republic. God bless him. I'm honestly gutted about this. The guy, he just loves his country, and he doesn't want to be a puppet to the United States. I cannot wait for there to be an end of this sort of cross-nation corruption that locks up good men because they consider their own countries above someone else's. It's just heartbreaking. NATO is a relic and should have been abolished after German reunification, independent candidate for US Senate from New York, Diane Sayre, told Sputnik. I mean, I think most people are aware of that. It will be interesting, though, to see what sort of reception she gets for saying this, because it's my understanding that Americans generally fall into two camps. They either hate NATO because they don't think we deserve their support and their security, or they understand that NATO is the US's way of terrorizing and controlling the world. I don't know many Americans on either side, either pro-American or aware Americans, who actually think NATO is a good idea. So I feel like it'd be interesting to see how this goes. I know if Trump gets in, he will be looking at disbanding NATO. And I think that, as I said before, the end of Ukraine is the end of NATO. They go together. Turkish intelligence agencies have conducted an operation during which they gained access to a secret database of ISIS terrorist organisation with the name of almost 10,000 so-called lone wolf terrorists. Did they just look at the payslips? Do you know what I mean? Did they ask the Americans for their tax records? Like, how did they discover this information? It's just wild to me. US to ban investment in China's high tech. Now, China is being hurt a bit by these sanctions from America, but just like Russia, it will get over them and it will come back stronger. We'll have a little look further into the Chinese economy shortly. Please sign in, check in for part 2. Follow me, Diplomacy is free, YouTube, TikTok, Telegram. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. let's talk about some news. First off, we have